Morrell. Alexa, you were 29 years old. You had a family, a young son named Maddox when you were first diagnosed. But you had colorectal cancer. That's typically a cancer that people associate with, I think most people typically get it above age 45, in their 40s is when you first start getting screened for colorectal cancer.
Yeah.
For you, take us through how the diagnosis happened, because, you know, for people watching, they might think this is a disease that typically affects older people.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it used to be an old person's disease, and it's completely untrue now. Unfortunately, it's young onset colorectal cancer is on the rise for people under 45. And it's been steadily increasing since the 90s. So someone born in 1990 has like double the chance to get colon cancer than someone born in the 50s. So the scary thing is it's a deadly silent, it can be it's a silent disease. So symptoms often don't present till stage 3 or 4. So typically some types of cancers, you can feel a lump or a bump and you can get lucky and, you know, get an early stage diagnosis. When I say there's no luck with cancer, but luckier to get early diagnosis. For colon cancer, I didn't know this when I got diagnosed, but in my head when I was told something could be wrong, I was like, oh, well, I had symptoms for 2.5 weeks. Like, it's probably early stage. No, it was stage 4, but symptoms don't present until stage 3 and 4. So it was silent for like 5 to 10 years. I had a normal, healthy pregnancy. I was healthy my whole life. Someone who went to the doctors, you know, once a year for every different type of doctor. So it's scary. So I really try to do my best to advocate and share signs and symptoms, which could be weight loss and fatigue, blood in your stool, and weight loss, blood in your stool, fatigue. So those are some sharp pains. Those are some of the symptoms. I had blood in my stool for 2 weeks, and that's all that it was. I had a colonoscopy, and
and
that was the beginning of it all.
Right,
Wow.
that most people would typically rule out. You know, you try and justify symptoms here and there, and you're like, okay,
Right.
I'm fine. You know, I'm not going to look too much into it, but this just...
Everyone thought it was hemorrhoids, and I was like, oh, and 1-year-old, I'm like, maybe it is. Like,
Right. And you had a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
29 years old.
Yeah.
You're so young. What was it like having to go through treatment while also raising your baby?
it was really, really hard. Luckily, I have an amazing support system. My husband, Ryan, who's watching from New York, he's training for his new job there. My immediate family, my parents, and my sister, my best friends, I have a really great support system, and I'm just so lucky for them. I truly always tell people that you lean on the ones you love when you need them, and they really did carry me through it all. But it was a lot. Like you said, you know, raising a baby, I was working. I still am, and at the time was working full-time from home before the pandemic, and I continue to do so throughout it all. But it just kept me busy, and it was good for me. But juggling everything it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so reading your story, I looked you up before you came on, of course. And one thing that really stood out to me is that you were going through treatment during the COVID pandemic, right? So at Dana-Farber,
It was wild, yeah.
were you even able to have guests with you while you were going through treatment?
So I'm happy that when I first started, it was a completely different experience, and I get why they had to change it. But up until like I think more than halfway through, I had my husband there. Every appointment, biopsy scan, blood work, everything. He was there on chemo days for like 6 hours working beside me. And then when March came around, I finished chemo the end of April. I was getting dropped off by myself, wearing an N95 and gloves, and like had no visitors. It was so scary. But they made me feel safe there because there was such great security, and like the nurses were amazing. So they kind of made up for me not having a support person there. I did a lot of FaceTime, but it definitely was a completely different experience, and I do feel for those people who went through chemo only by themselves, because it was just so nice to be with someone. So I kind of got to experience both sides of it, and it was so different.
I couldn't even imagine
Yeah.
having to do that on your own. And you were declared cancer-free in May of 2020. So even
For the first time.
For the first time, yes. But even as the world was, sort of like crashing around us with the pandemic and things like that, having that, moment of positivity, what did that feel like for you?
It felt awesome. I mean, yeah, there was so much going on around the world, and I was just like, so much negativity, and I was like, I just gotta focus on, finishing the plan, and the plan was finish chemo in April, have my second liver resection, colon resection in May, and I was, so optimistic that nothing was ever going to come back. And I'm glad I celebrated like we did, because why not? But looking back, I think I was a little naive that I was going to be done that quickly with stage 4. Doesn't always work like that. But it was a great, time to celebrate a couple months of bliss, and then reality kind of slapped me in the face a few months later. Yeah. But I'm doing really well today, so I'm just lucky to be alive, and I credit Dana-Farber for my dream team of, Dana, MGH, and Brigham, my surgeons and my doctors. I've had 3 lung surgeries, 1 colon resection, 3 lung surgeries, 2 liver resections, chemo and radiation in less than 3 years, 3 years next month. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, and for your son, really growing up, you think back on your first memories. Some of his early memories, if you will, are his mom going through treatment.
Yeah, my scars, my wig. He used to pull my wig off in public. He took his first steps the day I got diagnosed. So it was like we went through this, together. He thank God for him, because I feel like it was him that kept me going. My family, my husband, my son. But as much as I wish, I say this all the time, as much as I wish I found my cancer sooner, there's a chance he would not be here today if we did find out when I was pregnant. So it's a weird, situation of, I wish we found it earlier, but I have a lot of friends who had to terminate, unfortunately. So I'm just lucky he's here. He's a miracle.
Wow, that's incredible perspective. Yeah. Wow. So how do you continue your advocacy work with family, friends, your community, with people going through this?
It just helps me, put meaning to it. Obviously, I wish this never happened, but it did. So I just want to make some good out of it. And so helping people kind of navigate them through the worst time of your life, and just try to help them, just really fills my cup up in a way that I can't explain. And so many people welcomed me with open arms, whether it was from Dana-Farber or the online communities that I'm a part of, and they did that for me. And so I'm just trying to give back any way that I can. It's really hard, but when you have, strangers on the internet trying to help you out, people that did that for me, it brings me a lot of joy to give them tips and lead them to connecting with other people to get them second opinions, to possibly tell them to come to Dana-Farber. So it's a part of my life that I'll never stop doing, even if I'm years out from this disease. Advocacy is really something that just brings me so much joy.
Absolutely. And Alexa, I can tell you already that your advocacy is likely saving the lives of hundreds of young people around the country.
I hope so.